Good evening. This is Point Blank on KTN News. My guest today, David Murathe, has done quite a lot. Let's see what he's done before.
David Murathe's political ambitions began to show while he was still a university student and was the Secretary of Academic Affairs for the student organization SONU in 1979 to 1983. Following the failed military coup in 1982, Murathe was arrested and detained for 7 months with fellow student leaders believed to have been members of Mwakenya, the acronym for Patriotic Union of Nationalists to Liberate Kenya. Following his release, he was, however, promptly rearrested and detained at the Kamiti Maximum and Shimo La Tewa prisons for 15 months. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in political science and economics from the University of Nairobi. In 1997, he represented Gatanga constituency as Member of Parliament, having won on a Social Democratic Party ticket, SDP. He served in the Agriculture, Lands and National Resources Parliamentary Committee and was an active member of the Coffee and Tea Parliamentary Committee. Considered among his achievements are the repeal of the Coffee Act Cap 333 and the Coffee Act Cap 9 of 2001, which addressed the high cost of production, declining production land, and declining soil fertility, as well as unfavorable coffee prices. The enactment of the Tea Act No. 6 of 1999 led to the dissolution of the Kenya Tea Development Authority and the formation of the Kenya Tea Development Agency in 2000, owned by more than 560,000 small-scale tea farmers in 65 factories. The Water Act 2002 brought far-reaching reforms, including improvement of access to sustainable, safe water and sanitation services at affordable costs. He would then serve for the term and lost the seat in 2002 to Peter Kenneth. Later, he served as Uhuru Kenyatta's aide when the latter was the finance minister in the post-2007 Kibaki-Raila coalition government. A close Uhuru friend, Murathe re-emerged in 2013 when he led the team that birthed Jubilee Party with President Uhuru Kenyatta's then TNA and Deputy President William Ruto's URP as its headliners. The merger would see the two win the presidency. Murathe was Jubilee's vice chairman until January 6, 2019.
We must now engage in parties. We must engage in manifestos. This individual is our turn to eat. I don't know what, that is the problem.
Good evening. You're watching Point Blank on KTN News. My guest today, David Murathe wa Cairo. Karibu sana to KTN.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Sana.
Thank you.
Now, David, there's been a lot in the news. Certainly, right. I know we're going to talk about a lot of things, right, including the state of the nation.
Right.
But I wanted to take the country back, right, to the formation of the Jubilee Alliance Party, right, that later became Jubilee Alliance. When you look back at the ICC, because at the point where Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta was charged at the ICC, right, and William Ruto was charged at the ICC, right, there seemed to be the basis for marriage. Let's start there. How do you recollect the coming together of Kenyatta and Ruto?
Well, Tony, the coming together of the president and the deputy president was the coming together of two communities. It was not about two individuals. It was about two communities which had hitherto been at war with each other, and more important than anything else, we wanted to guarantee a peaceful election. It was about a peace dividend. It was about that no other Kenyan would ever go to war on account of an election. And so the main protagonists, the two warring sides, needed to come together. Now Uhuru happened to be the leader of the Mount Kenya nation, and William had since become the de facto leader of the Kalenjin community. So it's like when we needed to guarantee that peace dividend, the leadership of the two communities needed to work together and come together, and it was not easy. We had several meetings, Joshua Kuthuni, Charles Keter, William Ruto himself, people like the late George Thuo, the former PS Energy in Njoroge, in Njoroge's house. And we went through these motions and agreed, let's come together. Of course, there were people who were feeling maybe you should lock out Raila in your corner, we would lock out Raila in ours, and then come together in a runoff scenario. Obviously, I remember mentioning once to the deputy president, by the time they are thinking of coming together, they would be at The Hague, and they would probably be in jail. And so he thought through it, and he agreed with us that if you can actually then come together in a runoff scenario, you might as well try it with the first round. And it was a question of getting our elders to sit down. We talked to our elders, they talked to their elders, then we brought the elders together. The two teams now came together, communities, not individuals.
Yes, David,
Tony.
I'm asking this because Kenyans really need to hear from you.
Yes.
You were then there.
Yeah.
Because the deputy president has said on several forums now that The Hague was a setup, that somehow some politicians, namely Raila and others, sat down to conspire in order to send Uhuru and Ruto to The Hague. You are saying that communities came together in order to defeat elections. Is there any truth in the fact that there was a setup by some sections of leaders to kind of put The Hague? Because I thought The Hague, they invited themselves by the deaths that
It was about the persons bearing the greatest responsibilities in terms of the perception and in terms of the Waki report. Remember, there was a lot in the Waki report which was called the in-camera version, the in-camera sessions, where people gave evidence in camera. And that is the envelope that Kofi Annan took to Ocampo. And the contents of those informed the court about who are the people who needed to be prosecuted, or the people whose prosecutions needed to be confirmed. Remember, this post-election violence was not actually just against Kikuyus. They even attacked the former President Moi's farms, and they even killed some of his cattle. It was really not about setting up certain persons. Obviously, the persons who should have borne the greatest responsibility for the post-election violence was Kibaki and Raila. Those were the competitors. These were the people who were in the race.
Kwa sababu David, nakuuliza kwa sababu mwananchi wa kawaida, they say that if you change the political, if President Kenyatta, for example, reshuffled the cabinet or somehow did not support William Ruto's bid for 2022, before we come to other matters, on the issue that the ICC was some kind of signature in blood, that somehow mutaona, if you don't, we paid a price together, it's as though it's a covenant. It is a threat that central Kenya people in Rift Valley live with fear, that somehow if this arrangement with Ruto and Kenyatta does not last to 2022, there is this kind of undertone, and I wanted you to deal with it squarely.
Tony, that cannot be correct. For example, who knows whether William will be there in 2022? It is not a covenant between two people. And I want people to be very clear here. And there's this narrative that if people from Mount Kenya, for example, do not vote for the deputy president, the Kikuyu community in the Rift Valley, watapigwa. And actually that actually puts the DP in a very awkward position, because the protagonists of those pronouncements are actually then saying he's the owner of the war, that he's the one who makes people go to fight, so that if he's not elected, then people will be killed. I thought the whole idea here was to make sure that no other Kenyan ever fights on account of the political outcomes. And I can tell you, Tony, for free.
Yes.
2022, we know the formations that will be in the game. There will be a formation led by Raila Odinga. I expect people like Kalonzo, Musalia, Gideon, and probably even Uhuru to be part of that formation. William will also have his own formation with the Duales of this world, the Kindikis of this world, etc. But Tony, I can tell you for free, the passion and the turnout that has been witnessed in Mount Kenya, particularly in the last two elections of 2013 and 2017, it cannot be guaranteed.
So, David Murathe, I want to ask you point blank.
Yes.
This is heavy.
Right.
You're saying Uhuru will not be idle in 2022.
He has said it himself. Uhuru spoke in Nyeri, and he said, don't write me off just yet. And what I support may shock some of you. He said it. I'm not saying it.
So, David,
he's the one who said it.
So, point blank, David.
Yeah.
How are MPs? I think they are a gang of 25.
Yes.
They seem to like to talk at the stairs of Parliament.
Right.
And they seem to attack Raila.
Right.
So, really, you're telling me they're attacking Uhuru? Because,
By
in other
extension,
words,
when you attack the handshake, either you don't understand the philosophy behind the handshake, or you're deliberately being used to propagate another narrative. Everybody agrees, the whole world agrees, not just Kenyans, that this handshake was good for Kenya. This country, handshake stabilized the country. The handshake brought about peace. People are going about their business, Tony, without fear of demonstrations or actions by activists, stone throwers, etc. People are working, Tony. And Kenyans are not so much about government. They are about you being able to create an enabling environment for them to do their thing.
as I come to the handshake, I'm taking you back to your words,
Right.
that there will be a political formation.
Right.
And those formations, one will be RUTO and
Yeah.
one will not be RUTO.
Of course.
And I'm putting to you
Right.
that the MPs who purport,
Yeah.
coming from your region,
Right.
and you are the immediate former vice chair of Jubilee,
Right.
and they are MPs at Jubilee,
Yes.
and they are saying
Yeah.
and defying what you are saying. Are you telling me that they are not fighting the handshake, they are fighting Uhuru? I'm asking you point blank.
Nobody can purport that they have no idea about what the intention of the president or what the wish of the president would be. The wish of the president is to stop the 2022 campaigns. Those guys, every weekend, are about 2022 campaigns. So to that extent, yes, they are defying the president. Because the president wants people to focus on the people programs that support Wanjiko. Development in the food security, in health, in housing, and in manufacturing. So if you do not focus on those four pillars of the wish of the president, and you go about talking about the next president, obviously, yes,
So
you
David,
are defying the president.
So clearly you're not taking this line down. I saw you in Gatanga at a church service with Minor Commander, with the former presidential candidate Peter Kenneth,
Yeah.
and a group, Wambogo from Nyeri. Mutahi Kagwe was here the other day speaking for the president.
Yeah.
Are you saying that Central is reorganizing itself because it seems that some MPs have gone wayward? Is it the reality that there's a new political, would you like to say, contest in Central?
No, the truth of the matter is that you have two very distinct camps in Mount Kenya. There is a so-called Tangatanga, who report to Karen. We are told some of them go out there for handouts, and some of them were having projects lined up for them, which were easy money. Then you have the people who want to make sure that the president delivers on his promise as he exits the scene. The president needs to have a legacy, Tony. There's no way he's going to have a legacy when the focus is about an election which is 4 years away.
So as we come there, I wanted you to know everyone in Mount Kenya and beyond is listening to David Murathe. You're a confidant of Uhuru Kenyatta for nearly 24 years. I mean, there's no question about it. What are you telling the people, not the leaders? What wananchi wa Central, where unawaambia nini, where Murathe?
The people on the ground, the message has resonated with the ground. The people have no time for the 2022 politics. The people know when that time comes, there will be time for the politicking and people will be free to choose. You talked about the group that's now being dubbed the anti-corruption crusaders. The whole country, Tony, is very keen to support the president on this fight against corruption. Everybody knows that if Uhuru Kenyatta does not deal with this monster called corruption, nobody else can. And the reason he does it is because he does not need to steal. Uhuru has enough. He is the kind of person, and Tony, I feel so sorry for this country, because here is a president who actually genuinely means well for this country. And then you have his lieutenants who are supposed to be supporting him in this fight, pulling him down and throwing cold water.
Particularly,
on the
David,
fight against corruption.
Something that I have noticed, and obviously the deputy president has perfected this.
Right.
Every time he speaks in a church or where, he says, me and Mudusi.
Yes.
Me and Uhuru.
Yes.
In fact, everyone who is now fighting is fighting me and Uhuru.
Yes.
Now I'm here to ask you point blank, because it's becoming confusing. It's as though the people who came with the handshake are looking as though they are fighting for the president more than the Murathes of this world, who are Uhuru's confidants. So when the deputy president is saying Uhuru and I, ahead of any actions that may be taken by the agencies, what is the message? You know, because Kenyans are confused. Because the president hasn't addressed it squarely. And people know Murathe talks point blank. So my question is this, and it's very clear. There is rumors of imminent arrests. And those arrests look like they're going in a certain direction. So where are we, David?
Give it to the president. When he addressed the State of the Nation, he washed his hands from the process. He washed his hands from the legal process. He washed his hands and left that task to the relevant agencies, the investigative agencies, the DCI, the prosecutorial ones, the DPP, and the courts. And he even challenged, Maraga was sitting there and said, please up your game. So what is the president saying? He's saying we have agencies who are charged with the responsibility. And that's why he said he doesn't want mob justice. All right? And he said, the minute you are arraigned in court, the operative word was, you shall be removed.
So David,
people are a bit impatient.
Yes.
But you know, the wheel is turning. It could be turning slowly, but this you can take to the bank. Very soon, you will see arrests and prosecutions and sackings.
Millions of Kenyans want to know.
Right.
Because they take David at his word.
Right.
Have you talked to Uhuru after the State of the Nation?
Yes.
Are you clear in your mind
that
he has washed his hands off this matter of corruption?
He has completely detached.
Are you telling Kenyans point blank?
I'm telling Kenyans that the agencies were ready. The agencies were just waiting for the whistle to go. That whistle to go was given on Thursday at the State of the Nation by the president.
So I'm not asking Uhuru, I'm asking Murathe.
You're asking Murathe.
And I'm asking you point blank.
Yes. Is he going to let the agencies go after whoever it is, no matter how high? Yes. They have been given the marching orders. And remember, the DPP and the DCI do not work under the direction or instruction or influence of any other person. They are independent. And that is why recently you had some people trying to water down the powers of those agencies.
Yeah, but David, I think you've been a parliamentarian.
Right.
And you are involved in crafting the 2010 Constitution.
Right.
And I think you know Chapter 6 well.
Right.
The president has a political responsibility to give moral direction to the country.
Yes.
And what do you think? Because corruption cannot just be technical.
This is about political will. And if there is any person who has exhibited political will in the fight against corruption, it's President Uhuru.
So his critics are saying, why can't Uhuru reshuffle the cabinet? Why would Uhuru have to wait for DCI? Because that is a technical criminal issue under the penal code. But under Chapter 6 of Integrity and Leadership, the president has sworn to uphold the Constitution.
Right.
And the Constitution requires integrity in leadership.
Right.
Why can't he get people to step aside, reshuffle his government?
Because one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the reason he is saying he will not even use the presumption of innocence, the minute it is pointing at you, Tony Gachoka, the minute they say we have reason to believe that you are involved in certain shenanigans, you shall be removed.
So, David, unless it is a strategy that the president needed to address the national, the country, the debate, and move away, you cannot move away from the fact that he is the political leader, and Section 6 gives him the leeway. It has been done by other presidents before, President Moi, President Kibaki, all have cracked the whip at
but
a political
the president cannot work under pressure. The president cannot be dictated to by the political exigencies of the time, because then people are bound to turn that to be a political vendetta. Already, they have been talking that these political prosecutions are targeting certain people as a way of trying to curtail their ambitions for 2022. So the president is saying, let due process take its own path. And you can be sure. And he said it the other day in Namibia. It doesn't matter who you are. You may be my brother.
Yes.
You may be David Murathe.
Yes.
You may be the closest political ally I have. Yes. If these guys have cause to believe that you are involved in hanky-panky, you're on your own.
So Murathe anasema point blank, Uhuru is ready to bite the political bullet.
Oh, yes.
He's ready to pay
it
the
doesn't matter who it is.
The law will be followed.
Tony, we have 2 presidents in South Korea who are in jail. The president in Israel is in jail. Netanyahu, his cases are making him even do funny war games to rally the people behind him. The axe is falling. Here we have a deputy chief justice who is in court. That is the deputy president of the third arm of government. So even if you're the deputy president, surely.
So, David, I agree with you. So if you are aware, the presidents must also be aware that there is a current meeting of what you said, Tagatanga.
Yes.
And they meet with his MPs of Jubilee.
And defend corruption. And they defend the person who is perceived. And not just perceived, Tony. This is somebody who has gone on record in a program by the BBC, Stephen Saka, and admitted that the hotel which he owns sits on a piece of land which has been stolen. He himself, it is not David Murathe, he went on BBC and said, we have since discovered that the parcel was irregularly acquired. What is he telling Kenyans? He is handling stolen property.
And now, David Murathe is telling him point blank that we, Watu wa Uhuru, we know what you're doing.
And
we know the troops you have
He's the one who is saying it. And then his troops are busy going around and saying, that is nothing. All right? And you cited Chapter 6. And Chapter 6 is about the highest sense of integrity. All right? These are not moral issues. Actually, if you can go public and tell people, I admit he was taken to court. I admit I took Muteshi's land. And I admit to return the land. And I admit I'll pay him 5 million, which he did. All right?
David, do you remember?
Tony, let me tell you, Tony. Yes. Do you know people who were removed from the Rift Valley? We have never seen them being resettled back to their farms. Most of them were chased all the way up to Mahiu here. So it's laughable when you hear people saying they are going to chase people from the Rift Valley. Which people? You already chased them anyway. Why don't we hear that same Tangatanga team going out there and preaching peace and preaching reconciliation and making sure that the people who were removed from their farms in the Rift Valley are returned? Why don't we ever hear them saying the cattle of Daniel Arap Moi, which they cut up that they are going to pay him compensation.
What I find interesting, David, Boni Halwale,
Yeah.
you remember he put a motion in
Yes.
2009.
Right?
What, against William Ruto.
Yes.
In the National Assembly.
Right?
Do you recall?
I do, Tony, I do. And even later,
Yes.
he has been on record, and that clip plays every now and then,
Yes.
saying he wants William Ruto to explain how he has acquired 4 or 5 helicopters, how he's building a house worth 1.2 billion in Sugoi. He has been challenging the deputy president to explain. He knows his salary. He knows the businesses the DP does. Obviously, maybe he doesn't know about the Kimana and Aror dams. But he was asking a legitimate question. Halwale himself, Deputy President, please explain to us the source of your money for you to be able. I'm told he has now 7 helicopters. Some of them have even night vision. I'm told he has a hotel in Mombasa called Dolphin. I'm told he's doing a 1.2 billion shilling house. People need to understand, and that is why in ethics and integrity, they all, present their assets before they come into office with the Speaker of the National Assembly, so that over the term, you must be able to explain all this wealth which you have amassed by virtue of your office over the 5 years. That is why people have that depository of wealth declaration forms.
You're watching Point Blank. This is KTN News. David Murathe says President Uhuru Kenyatta are Ogopi, and after the State of the Nation, there will be action. We'll be back. This is Point Blank KTN News. David, unajua, in fact, millions of Kenyans don't know that we have a history.
Yes,
Your father, the late Murathe,
yes.
My father, Tony Gachoka, were the pioneers of wines and spirits in Kenya.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
And Tony,
Yes.
when you look at that generation of rags to riches, my father used to be a sign painter. He came to paint Kenya bus. He became a bus conductor, an inspector, and then employed as a salesman driver. And because of his knowledge of the city, then the Africanization, when it came, the ownership of the Sakon and Speed then left it to him, lock, stock, and barrel. There was dignity in work. Your father, my father, the other day we went to bury Kamau Mwagiwadhayo. People who have meticulously grown their businesses slowly, surely. When you compare with today, where people are going into public office for self-enrichment, and that is why you're finding some of these tanga-tanga thinking it will now be their turn to make a quick buck if their candidate becomes the president in the next dispensation.
I even know you're doing a lot of work with my brother William on coffee.
We are doing coffee. We did Kotepa Coffee and Tea Parliamentary Association. We did a lot in tea. The president's commitment in coffee, you have seen it even in the last State of the Nation address.
3 billion.
He has written off the coffee debt. He is giving a facility of 3 billion. I heard people complaining that he didn't talk about fish, I don't know maize, I don't know what. There is no sector where government money has been pumped in like the maize and the sugar sectors in this country.
So, David, I want to take you back to the State of the Nation.
Right.
Many political observers noticed the increase of friendships that seem to be surrounding Uhuru Kenyatta. I noticed the attendance of Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka. I noticed the attendance of Moses Wetangula. I noticed the attendance of Musalia Mudavadi, all prominently named.
I think, Tony,
by the Speaker.
You have to give it to the Speaker. Because these people were sat in the front row of the Speaker's gallery. That is reserved for the people of the highest honor in the National Assembly. And that was the State of the Nation. And these guys demonstrated nationhood and statesmanship. And you also noticed that when they went out to the tent, there was a sitting for all of them. They are all leaders. In fact, the only guy we didn't see there who is a party leader was Gideon Moi. And you better tell him to start walking the talk. No, he must, because we had the leader of Wiper, the leader of ODM, the leader of ANC. We had the leadership of this country. We need the leader of KANU.
Now, David,
to start also working with the rest.
Agreed. For those who don't know what you do behind the scenes,
right?
You've been the head of the UK Centre for a very long time.
That's correct.
And that chair was not easy, because before you was Catherine Kihanya.
That's okay.
A relative.
She set it up.
And then wewe ukakalia hiyo kiti. Sasa,
yeah.
Because I know you work closely with the speaker,
right,
Muturi.
Right.
I am asking you again point blank.
Yes.
I noticed something strange in this state of the nation.
Right.
The entire opposition was there.
Yes.
As the president is washing his hands.
Yeah.
Something is about to happen. So, since you are here point blank, tuambie tu kweli, what is going on behind there? What's going on in the kitchen?
I think it is the determination to rid this country of the vice. It is very expensive, Tony. Corruption is very, very expensive for this country. And then there was a meeting of minds between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, supported by Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, Gideon Moi. The need to go back to the basics. And let me tell you something, Tony, about this onslaught against corruption. Like I told you, there are some people who come to government to try and make money. There are some people who are also driven by selflessness to serve the people. I've noticed recently you had people here throwing numbers, David Ndi and Githongo. I would wish sometimes you would ask them to actually substantiate some of those allegations they make. Because when you make the whole world think that Kenya is under the water or that Kenya is burning, and then you see the governor of Samburu, the stories were 2 billion. Then he ends up in court with 100 supplying, using his petrol station to supply vehicles of the county. That is a charge. Let us also temper it with reason. This country is not on fire. Tony, if you look at the Nairobi skyline, something is correct. There must be some fundamentals which are working. There must be, because when you look at venture capital, Kenya has inherited 60% of all the FDIs coming into Sub-Sahara are coming to Nairobi. All those guys cannot be wrong. There is something happening. There may be the din and the noise of corruption, which is a good thing, because it is telling those people who were doing these things with impunity, we are watching you and we are coming for you. And it's not just the system that is going after them. The public, the people, have said enough is enough. And we have all agreed, Tony, if there is a legacy that Raila and Uhuru will leave behind for this country, it is the eradication of corruption and to leave behind a united country.
So David, right after the handshake, I noticed that David Murathe came out publicly.
Yes.
And knowing you being the Kenyatta handler for the years you have been, I don't know you to be careless. So when David Murathe stands up and says, well, you are vice chair of Jubilee, that you, William Ruto, you are not going to make it. And you said it as vice chair of Jubilee. Then soon after that, David Murathe resigns. Then soon after that, formations in central Kenya are two distinct groups. Then after that, the heavyweights come to the state of the nation, Mudavadi, Kalonzo. If you read these things in quick succession, David, wewe ndio ulianza hii maneno. What is going on? Wewe ndio ulianza hii mambo.
I did not start it.
You said it.
I believe that the president, in his wisdom, means well for this country. And if it is a small price to pay, to bend over backwards and shake hands with Raila Amolo Odinga, rather than being antagonistic. And if you remember, Tony, the narrative that was going on there that time was that Mount Kenya owed William Ruto a favor, that they have no choice, they have to vote for William Ruto. And I said, no. If there was such an agreement, it was between Uhuru and Ruto. It was not between Ruto and the community. Because the community must be unshackled. The community must be left to make their own informed choice about who would serve their best interests going forward after Uhuru. And I am very clear in my head, that person is not William Ruto. The way he has conducted himself since 2013, 2017, and the worst part of it was the impunity with which he was doing this. And then there was this feeling of exclusion. And that is why you are finding when people are being harassed and arrested left, right, and center, it is these two communities. So you are like, so what happens to the other 42 Kenyan communities? There needed to be some form of inclusion in governance. And this handshake, that is what it brought on the table.
As I will come to the handshake, I want to conclude this matter of Mount Kenya.
Right.
Because Kenyans don't hear from you often.
Yeah.
So the fact that the deputy president knows that you have taken a stand against him.
Right.
Then he assembles 25 or so MPs from the region.
Right now there are like 5 or 6.
Okay.
Most of the others have run away. No, I'm telling you. We know there is one in Nyeri, there is 2 in Muranga, and there is 2 or 1 in Kiambu.
So as
that is a statistic right now.
So as a strategist in, and a political thinker,
yeah,
why would he come into Uhuru's backyard, Murathe's backyard, to launch an onslaught against the president from there?
He was not launching against the president. Yeah, I think you have to credit to him. He's a smart politician. If he could take Mount Kenya and go with that perception to the Rift Valley, and he would be able to tell the Rift Valley, look, the whole of Mount Kenya is with me. It's only you guys who can let me down. Then he takes that team and goes with it to Western. And they will tell Western, look, I have Mount Kenya, I have Rift Valley, we have already won, the 2 of us. If you don't join us, you stay out in the opposition. He goes with that same thing to the coast. So it was a perception thing. When we came out and said he cannot take it for granted, we cannot be assumed, that's how the cookie crumbled.
Now, David, you also know I have the highest regard for the president.
Right.
But people out there are telling me, Uhuru is looking weak.
Yeah.
Uhuru is looking indecisive.
Right.
Uhuru is looking as though he has been locked in the bedroom by his deputy. That is what ordinary Kenyans are saying. How would you...
Nothing can be further from the truth. In fact, it's you who said, when you're very strong, you demonstrate like you're weak.
The art of war.
The art of war.
Yes.
When you're weak is when you go shouting how strong you are.
When you are of equal strength, you offer battle.
Exactly.
Or you crush them.
And let me tell you, the president is in charge. Let's start there. And he has made it very, very clear. This is his government. This is his agenda. You either toe the line or you take a walk. Now, and that he has said to them. And they can tell you if they are candid with you and they are honest. He has said it.
Because then my question comes directly to the ruling party.
Right.
There is no way David Murathe just resigns and leaves Jubilee. Either you are finished with it, you and Kenyatta, either, because you are at point blank. And these Kenyans who want to hear, you want to know. David Murathe cannot just leave.
Tony, for the record, when you tender your resignation, you tender it to the appointing authority. And you wait for the appointing authority to either accept or reject.
But even I know Uhuru has not. I know Uhuru. I know I speak with.
I know
he has not
if
accepted.
You go to the registrar of political parties, you might still find that David Murathe is the vice chair. Technically, but deep down, and I said it in broad daylight, my staying in that party, as long as we are supposed to sit in the neck with the deputy president, was no longer tenable. Because we don't share the same...
But Uhuru has not accepted your resignation.
That is their business. I don't know. Ask Tuju.
Well,
Tuju is a person who should be telling people whether it was accepted or not. Me, I did my part.
I have access to government.
My part was to resign.
Yes.
To accept or not to accept, that is between him and the president, Tuju and the president. But having said that, Tony, you have seen they have started wearing yellow things. All right? Remember, Jubilee is a conglomeration of more than 13 political parties. So what message are they sending when they have RUTO T-shirts in yellow, which was the color of the URP, chanting RUTO for 2022? They are hinting at leaving Jubilee? I don't know. But I can tell you for sure, the president's vision for this party was
Murathe,
to grow
is
it.
Jubilee dead? With your resignation, is Jubilee dead?
Jubilee is alive, but there could be new formations closer to 2022. You remember the NAK, LDP,
Yes.
which formed the NAC,
Yes.
which actually swept us out of power as KANU then.
Yes.
I was with Uhuru in KANU in 2002.
So Rainbow came together with NAK.
Exactly.
Became a rainbow nation.
It's too early, and you can't predict. But me, I can see a situation where there could be new
But
formations.
when you are point blank, you must be point blank. You
And
cannot
I'm
predict. You have
saying-
resigned. You have resigned.
I'm saying point blank, there will definitely be new formations closer to 2022. And it might not be ODM, it might not be Jubilee, but something will give. That I can tell you, there will be like-minded against a team which is now being fronted by the Tangatanga.
I told you point blank, I saw the state of the nation.
Right.
And I began to see the signs of political realignment. And I'm just asking you point blank. You can give us a small hint. You don't have to remove everything. But what you are saying...
You can ask the president, he's your friend.
Yes.
You can ask Raila, he's your friend.
Yes.
Why should I purport to speak on their behalf? I cannot.
Let me ask you then,
Yeah.
talk to Raila supporters.
Right.
A lot of Raila supporters were very unhappy or shocked when the handshake came. And they have become better adjusted because the president has been handling Raila and Raila has been handling the president with a lot of decorum and good and respect that everyone can see.
Yeah.
When you are talking to Raila supporters who think that maybe the handshake has brought tranquility to the extent that him and your brother or my brother Uhuru have gone to slumber.
Right.
That is something we hear from supporters who want to see things moving.
No, I think they need to understand that these two gentlemen put the nation first, country first. They put the country ahead of their own egos and their own ambitions. There are some other people on the other side who have actually been fighting the Building Bridges initiative and the handshake. For them, it's a matter of life and death. And what happens to Anjiko, what happens to the economy, what happens to this country is secondary. So you're having two teams, one which is putting country first and one which is saying they are going to go for this thing at all costs.
I think you put it squarely. So you're saying the handshake is also a political deal.
Of course.
It is not just, they've been...
Yes, it is.
So this is a political formation.
Oh, yes. Uhuru has a definite term limit. Uhuru has not nurtured succession in Mount Kenya. Uhuru is the kind of person who would like to see more inclusivity in governance. You see, there's this narrative, Kikuyu akimaliza, Kalenjin takes. Kalenjin akimaliza, Akikuyu takes. Where will the other 42 tribes ever come in? I think it's time that Kenyans woke up to the realization that this country belongs to all of us.
James Orengo told me point blank that there is a formation coming.
Yes.
Now this is Murathe telling me the same. Surely Orengo was here and told me, this is not just a handshake.
Yeah.
They are serious.
Yes.
So are you saying to the country that Uhuru and Raila are serious beyond the British initiative to create political formations that are more inclusive, that put this country, if you like, on an ideological path that can sustain, political...
Tony, nobody knows what Uhuru and Raila agreed, apart from the 9 points that we saw from the MOU. You and I know the Building Bridges initiative is going around the country. In fact, their term was extended just the other day. We're waiting for that report, because that report should reflect the views and wishes of Kenyans. If Kenyans will be about accommodating more and more inclusion, that may not require a referendum. Some of those things can be done in Parliament.
That's interesting.
Yes.
You're saying that there's a political possibility of just actually doing the deal in Parliament and saving the country.
Yes. Not necessarily having to go through the referendum. Of course, there are some areas where you need to go to a referendum. For example, if Uhuru today wanted to do an accord and made somebody a prime minister, it is perfectly possible. In fact, I heard people saying Matiang'i is more or less like the
Active.
chief minister.
Yeah, chief minister.
So there's nothing that stops the president from creating that position and giving that person the role of coordinating all the other government ministries.
And actually, if you look at the U.S.
If
Constitution,
you look at the National Accord.
and even if you look at the U.S. Constitution,
Right.
amendments were incremental. So it doesn't all have to be done
At a go.
At a go.
No.
And as a political strategy, it can be done.
It can be done. There are so many things. Remember when we were passing this constitution, Tony, Kibaki himself and Raila agreed that it could be 80% good, but there is still a 20% which not everybody agrees with, which incrementally can be amended. Now, I think that is what we are looking at. For example, the system of governance, all right? This winner-take-all is the cause of all the problems that we are having here, where it is a matter of life and death, it's a do or die. Can we get something which seeks to accommodate as many persons as possible, where you have at least the big 5 tribes could be accommodated? Then there are so many other positions where you can do with the other communities. You have speakers, you have leaders of majority, you have whips,
Yes.
you have cabinet, you have PSs.
I want to narrow 2-3
and
issues.
everybody feels they belong.
As an opinion leader, and David, a lot of people take your advice. You, as David Murathe,
Right.
do you want to see a president with a prime minister? I want to talk about just 2 issues around the referendum. What Murathe would want. I'm not saying what Raila and Uhuru have agreed. Murathe's view.
I think Kenyans want to elect their president. They want to give him that mandate. That is why sometimes you look at something called the hybrid system, like the French model, for example.
Russia.
Russia is interesting.
Yes.
I'll actually be doing lunch with the Russian ambassador this week, because that one was Putin, where Putin is president, his term is finished, he then becomes the prime minister and he moves with all the power to the prime minister's office, then that term is finished, then he becomes president. I'm not sure we are going in that direction. What we are looking at is checks and balances, where you have executive authority vested in the president, maybe foreign affairs, defense, etc., but then the day-to-day vested in a prime minister who may or may not belong to the same political party. You see, in Tanzania, they win as a political party. The president wins because the party wins, and they get a prime minister from the president's party. The same case in Uganda. But if you look at France, actually Macron doesn't have the numbers in the House. It is the prime minister, the leader of the party, who has the most seats, who the president asks to form government. India, for example, also is a parliamentary system, pure, like Britain. I am not sure Kenyans want a pure parliamentary system here. They want to be able to elect their president.
So you're looking more at a hybrid.
It is a hybrid, where you have the president as a symbol of national unity, as the head of state, commander-in-chief, and then you can have a head of government also answerable to the president. If you look at the riots in France, Tony, they're against the president, the yellow jerseys, all right? And yet you have a head of government who is our prime minister. Yes. Do you even know his name?
Absolutely not.
Of course.
Yes.
So here is a situation where we can have checks and balances and broaden the base so that there is accommodation for a lot more.
So, David, in order to wrap up the state of the nation, from what I can see, from what you're saying, we should expect 3 things. Number 1, we should expect very tough action on corruption.
Right.
We ought to see some kind of restructuring of political formation, which would lend to a contest in 2022, where you say one side is already led by RUTO, and this other side is going to be led by a team, which you are going to disclose. And then, interestingly, you're talking about some minimum changes in the law that may not require an expensive process of going back to the people. So there is that option after the report comes.
Yeah, it is true. You see, the DP actually right now is the incumbent, because he's supposed to be the front runner defending the presidency because he has declared that he will be running for president. But we don't know who he will be running against. All right? So those formations must put their act together and decide who it is who will face the DP in 2022. That's number one. Number two, in terms of parliament, there was some form of alignment which was making it possible for the DP side to blackmail the president. If you don't do this, we won't pass this. If we want this, do this. It was like they were holding a gun over his head until Raila came. So when Raila came in with his numbers, Kalonzo brought in his numbers, Gideon was already with the president anyway, and Musalia also brought his numbers. That neutralized that blackmail and that threat. So it is no longer possible to hold a gun over the president's head on matters that need to be prosecuted in the House. And you have noticed, even in the State of the Nation, the side that was actually with the president was actually more the opposition side
yes,
than the Tanga side.
Yeah.
So you have a split Jubilee side, and you have a solid opposition side, which agrees with the president on the need to shake up this country to its roots in terms of addressing some of these issues that make it impossible for this country to grow.
You are watching Point Blank on KTN News. David Wakairo Murathe says you can no longer blackmail the president. Team Tanga Murathe says your time is up. We'll be back. This is Point Blank here on KTN News. The Chinese have a proverb that the ox is slow, but the earth is patient. David Murathe says that President Kenyatta shall act. Now, Bwana Murathe, I wanted to come back to this issue of the formation and the political people. You've named quite a bit today. You've said that you have friendly working relations with Kalonzo Musyoka, Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi. But you keep saying that Gideon Moi and Kanu are missing in action. What do you mean?
We are saying that this thing is not about the Kalenjin community, that the Kalenjin can produce other leadership. We have people like Isaac Ruto out there. We have people like Sale Kosgei, Henry Kosgei, Zakayo Cheriot. We have people like Gideon Moi. Gideon is pedigree. Gideon is the leader of the Independence Party. Gideon was there with Uhuru in Kanu when Kanu lost to NARC. Gideon can grow the Kanu brand and bring it back to its proper place, not only in the history of this country. You see, when we were forming Jubilee, we wanted to form a strong party like the ANC, a national party, a party that transcends tribe, regions, ethnicity. Kanu, today, if you go to Nyeri, you will still find a mzee with a Kanu tie. If you go to Migori, you will still find a mzee with a Kanu tie. Now, Gideon needs to move.
Why I'm asking you this point blank is because you're saying you're inviting Gideon Moi and Kanu. And then you're telling me not Ruto. So my question is, why not Ruto? And why must Gideon Moi get his show on the road?
It is the differences. It is the
why not Ruto? Point blank.
Point blank, Tony. We are scared of what a Ruto presidency would do to this country. If he can behave the way he's behaving today, when he's second in command, one shudders to think how he would behave if he's the number one, Air Force One of this country. Because he has demonstrated impunity. He's the kind of person who would pick up telephones and call junior procurement officers and direct them how to give orders or tenders. And he would even be part of the teams that inflate costs of tender I'm witness to some of those ones. And I've said it publicly on some other TV shows.
So it is no longer television commentary
No.
or media commentary
No.
that Ruto is actually defying his president, his boss.
He is supposed to be the principal assistant
Supposed
to
to
the
be, but he is
president. They are supposed to be working in the same direction. The president cannot prosecute the war against corruption. And William and his acolytes are fighting that fight against corruption. Quite clearly, they are not reading from the same script. He should be supporting the lifestyle audit. He should be supporting the war against corruption if he's a principal assistant to the president.
So unaambia Gideon anachelewa. There is an opportunity for the Rift Valley to have a stable
face on that table, and that face cannot be William Ruto, Tony. Sorry.
David, I want to talk about something that I know is going to be important for Uhuru's legacy, and this is by law every 10 years.
Right.
The issue of the census.
Right.
How are they going to be conducted? What is the timeline? And what would you like to tell Kenyans about their importance?
The 2009 census was bungled. There is a case in court before Justice Wasame. Has been in court for 10 years. It has never been prosecuted. Where you are told a certain community had a 1.2 million population from a previous 300,000. You heard them on TV saying when we are busy drinking, they are busy producing babies. So if they are sure they have those kind of numbers, let's do biometric. You have seen the Huduma number. It will capture all the biometrics and all the demographics. The problem that I am told is a challenge from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is maybe if you're dealing with children, their biometrics are not fully developed. So it might distort. But to the largest extent, we are demanding a biometric registration for the adults. Anybody over 3, 4, 5 years should be taken biometrics. Maybe there could be a provision for the infants.
When I look at my rear view mirror,
right,
census have always brought back redistricting.
Yes.
And sometimes changes of boundaries.
Right.
Are you just looking for the number, or will this also have, or you have not yet discussed, administrative changes?
No,
in
the
counties
whole idea of understanding the numbers, number one, is, like you rightly saying, how to distribute the principle of one man, one vote to the nearest. However, you need to also deal with the marginalized areas and the sparse districts. North Hall, for instance, used to cover the landmass of Central, Western, and Nairobi combined. One constituency. During the days of Godana, they used to go even with a competition, so that if the car breaks down, unasaidiana. So there are certain considerations that will come into play apart from the numbers. Because if you look at also the population density, it is possible to do services to 200,000 people in Embakasi East, as opposed to 50,000 in Turkana.
Another thing Kenyans are concerned about, David,
right,
is that you've got the DCI working very hard.
Right.
And also the Haji working very hard. And the question I've always been asked,
right,
is government doing enough to enhance the personnel, the capacity? You know, obviously yes, corruption, what do you see?
That
is they take a team of lawyers,
it's been
the top lawyers.
It's been a challenge. You saw when they went to prosecute the DCJ.
Yes.
The DPP introduced a QC, and my good friend Orengo was busy trying to disqualify the QC from supporting the DPP. In this budget, this year's budget, the Committee on Administration of Justice has now increased money for the agencies in terms of the capacity that you're talking about. So they should not have any excuses anymore for not fulfilling their mandate. They are properly funded. They have been given a blank check. If they need more money, we have a parliament which is ready and prepared to throw everything in terms of resources to make sure this fight against corruption. Because If you win this fight, you'll actually be saving the Kenyan taxpayer a lot of money.
Are you concerned about their security? I know we can't talk publicly.
Whose security?
What I'm saying, these important officers of state. You see, I want to raise this question because,
Right.
David, it is not a simple matter.
Yeah.
When the deputy president is attacking you,
Yeah.
and his followers are telling you, wewe, utaona. I mean, the question I'm asking is this. This country is such an important place where we are.
Right.
That I hope that the government has taken all the measures, not only to provide everything, but their own security, the security of their offices. You know, where was it where this Marcos man burnt the Supreme Court? This drug lord, what? you know he burnt the entire court.
I hear you, Tony. I hear you. Even we had, is it Migori or Homa Bay, where they burnt all the records?
Yes.
Unfortunately, that does not change the fact that even if you try to threaten or abuse the office holders, there'll be another Murathe tomorrow, there'll be another Kenoti tomorrow, there'll be another Haji tomorrow. This is a system. And a system, Tony, is formless. You can't touch it. You cannot personalize. There's nothing personal about these things. It's what we believe and what you believe. I was saying in church the other day, we're going for Easter. And when Pontius Pilate wanted to release Jesus, he asked the crowd, do you want me to release the thief or Jesus? Because he had that prerogative around Easter. The crowd shouted, release the thief. You know that. Yeah, you know your Bible.
Yes.
In the same spirit, we are saying, let's put in perspective the character of this person. If Kina Waitito and company want to vote for him, and those Tangatanga people, that is their democratic right. We cannot stop. And if they actually succeed, we shall say, the majority has had their way,
yes.
But we, the minority, will have had our say.
Exactly. Why I'm asking you point blank?
Right.
How watu wako na pesa, David?
Yes.
The money which has stolen,
yes.
You saw the other day in a safety deposit box.
Yes.
Over 2 billion. Who can, let me tell you, these people are put under the mattress in the safety deposit. All I am asking you, corruption fights back.
I know that.
And I'm asking that you be aware.
Yeah.
And when you meet my friend, the president, remind him, we spoke point blank,
yes.
that these people fight back. They're not going to just sit there and wait for 9-9.
But Tony, one of the brief for the agencies is asset recovery. If these agencies are as thorough as we think that they are, they should be able to trace all these stolen funds, and that money should be repatriated. Whether it's here locally, in the mattresses, or in Europe, or in Dubai, or in Mauritius, they should have the capacity to be able to trace. There is a paper trail on all these things, Tony.
So, David, for Kenyans...
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, so for Kenyans to hear from you,
right.
The challenge of the investigative agencies
right.
are well in control, as
right.
you say.
Right.
What about the judiciary? I know that the executive cannot directly interfere.
Right.
But from where you sit, are you getting a sense that the judiciary is beginning to feel the cry of the people?
Yes, I'm getting that. You saw the bail terms that were given the other day, 150 million bond and 100 million cash bail. And even when they went to the High Court, it was 30 million. I think the judiciary is only as good as the evidence presented to it by those same agencies. Because justice is blind. And if you can get good lawyers who can prosecute your case and give you an exit clause, all right? That is the work of lawyers. You hire a lawyer and tell him, yes, I murdered, but I want you to get me out. And they'll get you out, either through technicalities or whatever. So it's not so much about evidence. It's about the political will. You saw the magistrate who expressed himself about how corruption is bad. He had to recuse himself from hearing that case.
So, David, I want to ask you this question. I know we have touched on it, but I want you to consider, and I ask you because I know you have a chat always with Uhuru.
Yeah.
There is other tools available to him other than prosecutorial. And I remember Kibaki making a major change in strategy when he fired his very good friend Murathe, Murungaru, Matere Kireri, Alfred Gitonga was there at State House, and he brought in Ambassador Muthaura. This is covered by Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Right.
And it may be the time for the president to consider dealing with this monster from different angles so that nothing compromises the investigative agencies.
Right.
Can the president not remove the political whip? He has access to intelligence. So he knows what you're saying. Somebody has 7 helicopters. He has all this information.
No,
why
the
can't he act?
president wants to follow due process. You see, we're living in a civilized community of nations. We are part of the global family. However, all those options are available to the president. For example, you know Kibaki did the radical surgery on the judiciary. You remember after the 2005 referendum, he dropped the entire cabinet. It was only him and the AG and the vice president who are left in office. It is also possible for Uhuru to crack this whip and reshuffle the entire. In fact, some of us had hoped that that was the way to go. But again, like I said earlier, the president does not work under the whims or the pressure. He cannot work under pressure. And by the way, Tony, the president always has the best intentions. You have so many things to balance out in terms of the perception, for example. When people go out there whipping emotion, our community is being targeted, our community is being finished, you have to deal with that narrative with facts and tell the people it's not about the community, it's about the individual.
Yeah, but David Murathe, you occupy a position that I can only remember someone like Joe Anjui occupied with Kibaki, an informal friendship that is not necessarily government. But when things got hot, it was always Wanjui, Mohoho Senior, and a few people would go and see Mwai Kibaki out of the media and sit down and talk matters Kenya. Perhaps you, David Murathe, and I'm saying to you, Murathe, point blank, you. Wakairo, you see, people do not see Uhuru outside other lenses. They see him with his friends, among you being them. So at what point do you think you need to sit our friend down and say, we need to act politically, even though the police are also acting on the other side? Has that time not come?
Uhuru relies a lot on the system. Because like you said rightly, he has a lot of information from the security agencies, NSIS. But it's true. He also has a lot of informal caucuses, and he bounces off ideas. But the buck stops with him, Tony. The buck stops with the president. You heard him in the State of the Nation. He said he has heard the cry of Wanjiko, all right? And he said, as a result, the war against corruption, I'm not relenting. As a result, my journey as far as the handshake and the building bridges is concerned, atuanguki, all right? You had heard some of those Central Kenya people saying the handshake is not good for the country, we should divorce, let's not continue with this. The president himself pronounced himself. Raila also pronounced himself the other day. So it's not like he does not listen. I'm sure he also listens to you. But the buck stops with him, and it's his call. And we are not about to tell him what to do, but we tell him this is what the ground is saying. Your Excellency, Mr. President, let's talk less. Let's see you acting more. And I believe the message that came out of the State of the Nation was less talk and more action. And he promised you will see more action and less talking. And that's why he said, I know you expect me to do certain things. I will not do that. But trust me, you will see action. And Tony, point blank, I'm also telling you, you will see heads will roll anytime now. That you can take to the bank.
I also want then to come to this important question, David. About after the action. The country will need, when Moi changed direction, he brought in the dream team. There was Licky and that whole team, that the country got confidence. You know, and I know you and Nancy Getawa had a strategy. And my question is, after action is taken, the country will need to see a ray of hope, a point of light, David.
I think it's happening already. Some of the people the president has introduced into government of late, some of them I even ask him, sasa huyo umemtoa wapi? Says he's a Kenyan and he's qualified. All right? Remember, in the first term, they were more or less sharing government with the deputy president. So the deputy president would prefer certain names, regardless of whether you and I believed they were competent or qualified to handle those dockets. But you have seen in this post-2017 election, the kind of people the president brought in and the kind of people the president dropped,
So specifically because of you say he's listening, and I know.
Right.
If you look at some examples I give you,
right.
Like look at the Senate.
Right.
You've got Lusaka, who is the speaker.
Right.
He's always in Karen or in Eldoret. And he is clearly involved in politicking. How can he steward the supervisionary role? And I'm saying this because what action are our senators taking together with ODM senators? You know, how do you allow?
We have had this conversation with the speaker himself. We actually lobbied for his election. I must say we have been a bit disappointed. He does not carry the dignity of the office expected of him. He should be above the fray. He should be neutral in this. But in politics, and remember he was a former governor, so he's also a politician. Maybe he's positioning himself post-Uhuru. Wish him all the best.
I then want to go further to people who the president can deal with in cabinet, civil servants who have become permanent campaigners, you know, on government time for 2022. So that what I'm saying is not just the action on corruption, but should there not be a very definite issue on governance?
Right.
And I say this, David, because Chapter 6 of integrity is being violated. And the president has taken an oath.
Right.
I was there, you were there at Kasarani.
Right.
To preserve and protect this constitution. So if Chapter 6 is very clear about anybody who is involved in any form of leadership, particularly government officials, towing the line and acting properly, isn't that itself, you know, a pointer that goes back to, because my grandmother used to say, you point your finger at somebody, 3 point back at you, God is a witness. Is the president darking the political hard question? And I'm not talking about the CID cases, governance.
I think some of these have been couched as a development to us. And that is why, if, for example, they're going to commission a hospital, road, a water project, you actually expect that the proper minister, the relevant minister, would be part of that entourage. You expect the accounting officer in the line ministry to be part of that entourage. But in most of these cases, you find that they're actually not there. And it's just the people around him who accompany him. And so they make a lot of pronouncements, which then actually don't become. You can go into the budget and look at the roads that are earmarked for tarmacking, and then you go and announce. But there's more to this thing than just making.
Because the president spoke about this, I think he was having a rally, impromptu rally somewhere in Nairobi.
Right.
When he first came publicly about this Tanga issue.
Yeah.
And he said you can't find people in offices.
No. But I must say, to a large extent, the civil service has been very, very careful. The ministers also, few of them, but then again, they're at liberty, provided it's relevant, what they're going to purport to launch or to.
So, David, I wanted to wrap up a few things because of time, particularly Mount Kenya. What is your message to watu wa Mlima Kenya across the country who have been feeling that they don't actually know where the president is at and where he's going with relation to the handshake and with regard to the politics they hear about every day?
What I can assure the people of Mount Kenya is that they should relax, because the president is grateful to them for the turnout and for the support, and that he's not going to let them down. That by the time he's leaving the stage, he will have made sure that their security is guaranteed, because they live in fear of tomorrow, what is likely to happen to them. Has the president nurtured succession in Mount Kenya? Where is Mount Kenya in this succession dynamics? I think the president has transcended that, and whatever he does is in the best interest, not just of Mount Kenya, but of the entire country.
I'm coming to ask you.
You heard him in Mombasa.
Yes.
He said development will not be on the basis of where the president comes from.
Right. I need to ask David Murathe.
Yes.
For the viewers.
Right.
What do the Raila Odinga people?
Right.
What is your message as David Murathe to them?
I think they have certain expectations in terms of, it's been a long journey for the Raila people. And remember, when Raila spoke about this handshake, they talked about where it all started, at independence and the unity of purpose, which enabled us to free our country from the yoke of colonialism. And they agreed with the president, let's go back to the basics. Where did the rain start beating us? And it's work in progress, and there is absolutely no reason why Mount Kenya, if, for example, Raila is a candidate, I see no reason why a sizable number of Mount Kenya would not throw their lot with Raila Odinga.
What is your message on corruption to Musalia Mudavadi, to Wetangula, to Kalonzo, to Gideon Moi? What are you saying to them? Ask David Murathe.
I think Musalia has pronounced himself. He has come out very strongly supporting the president in the fight against corruption. So has Kalonzo, and so has Gideon Moi and Wetangula. This fight is not about Raila and Uhuru. It is what is in the best interests of Kenya and the future generations. You are not telling me I'm going to bequeath the leadership of this country, my children or my children's children. It would be utterly irresponsible for some of us to sit back and do nothing.
So this man, David Murathe,
yes,
former vice chair,
right,
resignation not accepted
We
in the
don't
air.
know.
What next do we Kenyans expect? David Murathe's role now
Tony,
to 2022.
In my other life, I was a businessman. I ran a company that was the largest African computer company in this country. It was Kenya Business Machines, until I went into politics, and then I became broke. I even took a receiving order. You know, like Donald Trump?
Yes.
He has taken
Yes,
like 5 of them
Yes.
under the Bankruptcy Act.
Yes.
And you're actually not bankrupt. And people need to be educated about these things. Anyway, I lifted it
Yes.
almost immediately when things stabilized. So I would be quite happy to go back to business. I'm doing a lot in terms of coffee farming. I am venturing into real estate. And I'm grateful to the president for creating this enabling environment for people to do business. We had issues with the interest rate regime that crowded out money from the private sector to government, because all the banks were very keen on lending to the government because it was safe, it was secure, it was guaranteed. So the small enterprises, they were not having any more access to credit. So if that can open up,
and I needed to,
we will be happy to.
I need to ask you as well.
business.
You're head of the Uhuru Kenyatta Center.
Yes.
Would there be some work the president may pursue, foundation? Would you be involved in
It's
something?
already there. Uhuru has the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation. It's already running. The UK Center is actually redundant because the things we used to do for the president as the advisory unit are now done for him by the system.
Well, you have been watching Point Blank. They say when Murathe speaks, Uhuru speaks. You've seen it here at KTN News. Good night. Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
Thank
Sana,
you.
sana for
Thank
coming.
you, Tony. Thank
Asante
you.
sana,
Thank you for
Mheshimiwa.
having me.
Asante.
And well done. I like your show.
Yes.
It's now top.
Asante sana.
It's the top of the range.
KTN News. Good night.
Thank you.
Point Blank by TG was filmed on location at the Nairobi Serena Hotel.